Pretty much every single manufacturer is making something new that feels like something old at the minute. When we get hold of them, we like to check the DNA, follow the bloodline of these new retro bikes back and see just how far back you can go in terms of finding the original kind of heritage and roots of these new retro machines. Now this Kawasaki Z900RS Cafe is indeed the great-grandson of that absolutely stunning Kawasaki Z900. So it will take more than just a fancy ducktail and a few matching stickers for us to be fooled, but one quick look at this beautiful machine shows exactly how close to the original Kawasaki have managed to keep this 2018 model. So lots of people will claim that in the late 60s it was in fact the Honda CB750 that takes the original Japanese superbike crown, but for me it's all about the Z9. This bike was due to be released the same year that the CB750 came out, and Kawasaki kept it back so that they could increase the capacity, add a little bit more power, and make sure that it was faster, sharper and lighter than the Honda variant, much like they do now when we see ZX10 and Fireblade going head to head. Back in the day, this bike was the absolute bee's knees, but when you look at the numbers now, there's not all that much to get excited about. Ridiculously, only 81 horsepower, but I can remember being on the back of these. This is a genuine 120, 130 mile an hour machine. So as part of my research into the heritage of the new Z900RS, I actually picked up the phone and spoke to Tony Middlehurst, who used to be the editor at Superbike magazine back when I was 6 or 7 years old, mid to late 80s stuff. Tony was telling me about drag racing and Kawasaki's and how in the late 70s, guys were doing mid-12s on this bike at Santa Pod, at Avon Park, at Blackbush Airport, all of these iconic drag strip venues that people used to go and race at before riding around and around in circles became popular in the late 80s. It got me thinking that maybe rather than just going and doing a track day on our new Z900, we should pop along and take in a run what you brung at Santa Pod as well. Now, if you haven't been drag racing before, it's about as simple a motorsport as you can get when it comes to two wheels and four. We turned up at Santa Pod for a Run What You Brung day. I think we paid £10 to get in at the gate, which is what you pay to watch, and then we went down to the signing on hut, gave another £25 and went from spectator to competitor as easy as that. Very, very little in the way of scrutineering, noise, checking the bike had oil in it, checking the bike was going to fall to pieces at the start line. They don't really seem to care about all that stuff. It's quite refreshing. Interestingly, drag racing is not as easy as you think. Key tips that I would try and give you is to try and be as consistent as you possibly can with what you do and what you do to the bike. By that I mean I opted to go for the same body position that I would have at the lights when I'm riding to and from work, rather than laying myself along the tank and pretending to be something that I'm not. I just did what I do every single day. So that means sitting absolutely bolt upright, loading the bike up to about 4,000 revs and just keeping an eye on the lights. You get the option to do a burnout. Now, lots of people like doing burnouts. I'm not that big a fan. And when it comes to drag racing on modern radial tyres like these, there's not much point doing a burnout other than to clean off any debris, dust or crap that might be on the tyres of your bike. Heating the middle of a tyre like this, a modern tyre, doesn't really do that much for you. So you can do a burnout if you like, or not bother. I didn't really check the tyre pressures. I didn't bother lowering them, which would increase the contact patch, which might help me get out the door a bit quicker when the light goes on. But again, what I was trying to do is replicate what I do every single day on my way to work. So you line up, there's a Christmas tree, that's what it's called, that's where the lights are. You're staring at the Christmas tree once you've broken the first beam that you're looking for that's down on the ground in between you and your competitor. You'll see two tiny little holes. The first hole is pre-staged. You break that and the pre-stage light comes on above your lane. And then the next line that you go across is the staged light. Now, once you've gone into the staged section of the track, you're basically ready to go. So your clutch is at biting point, you're holding the bike on the back brake if you want, you've loaded your revs up and wait for the 3 green amber lights to all come on at the same time. And then almost immediately afterwards, you get your green light and that's when you go. Get that clutch out! The Now, if drag racing is new to you, like it is to me, I've only done it once before on a superbike road test. The hardest thing to get your head around is the scenery. You're in a different place to where you are doing what you're used to doing, which is just sending a bike from the traffic lights. The fact that there's probably hundreds of people watching you doing it, there's somebody next to you who's definitely trying to race you. It's not like you don't know, or you're pretending not to race that guy on that bike at the lights on your way to work, but actually you are racing and you want to steal the win. You're racing, you're definitely out there to go as fast as you possibly can. The first run that I did, I ran against a Suzuki GSX F1270 drag bike. It had nitros, it was tuned, so he knew what he was doing. I kind of had a bit of a clue about what I was doing, but I couldn't hear a single thing. So the only way I knew that I should be changing gear was when I could feel the bike bouncing off the rev limiter. That's not a good thing to do when you're drag racing or just riding. If you can hear your bike, great, just time your upshift as fast as you can, but just make sure that that thing is absolutely on the stop. From the minute you can get the clutch out, as long as the front wheel's down, make sure your gas hand is wide open and you're giving it everything that you can. Time your shifts, perfect them, get them as smooth as you can, just leave the thing on the stop as much as you can. This little bike, it's not that it was surprisingly easy to ride, it is very, very easy to ride, but it was surprisingly quick out of the box. My reaction time was terrible. That's the first stage of drag racing. We'll get to analysing your results in a minute, but my reaction times were pretty poor. So I was losing a tiny bit when the light came on, but I was able to make up that ground with very, very good drive, very little wheel spin, very little front wheel lift, which would cause you to roll the gas. Just kind of getting into the power of the bike, chucking gears at it, and just fixating on the end of the track. So my first run came about 12.4 seconds, quite reasonable. I think it's only reasonable to state at this stage that there were 80, 90 grand supercars, AMG Mercedes, all those things, big hot rods with kind of tubbed Pro Street back ends and big power, all running the same, kind of 12, mid 12s. So it was a respectable time for a first effort. I also beat the guy in the lane next to me. Winning is important, and it was nice to beat that bloke. You line back up, and you have to wait maybe anything between 15 and 40 minutes for your next run. So it's 12 seconds of excitement, and then 40 minutes sat about watching your tyres cool and just kicking your heels, waiting for your next go. What you can do at that stage is go back to the signing on hut and ask for your timing sheet. You don't have a race number, all you need to do is give them the registration of the bike that you're on. So I collected mine, and what it gave me was a breakdown of my reaction time, my 60-foot time, my 330-foot time, my 8th mile time, and then my terminal speed and the time that it took me to do a quarter of a mile. So you can dissect and analyse your results, have a think about what you want to do next on your next run, line back up and go again. It is a repetitive process, but it is exciting. It's bags of fun knowing that you're getting away with what you want to get away with at every single set of traffic lights when you're out on the bike on the road. So what exactly is the Z900RS Cafe like to live with? And what do you get for your 10,369 quid? We get quite a lot actually. There's loads going on in this bike. It's not just commuter bike wearing a pretty set of clothes. So we've got 41mm adjustable suspension at the front, twin disc, 4-piston, radial mount, ABS, monoblock brakes. We've got an adjustable shock. It has traction control with 3 stages, off, 1 and 2. It has ABS as standard. It has a beautiful 6-speed transmission. I'm not sure how many people could get away with describing transmissions as being beautiful, but that is a very, very good one. It has 109 horsepower and it makes 75 Newton meters of torque. The fuel tank is 17 litres in capacity. The seat is 835 millimetres from your toes, and it's a very, very comfortable place to sit. All up weight is 215 kilograms, which again, if you just live and die by the spec sheets and the numbers that you read on bikes, it sounds like quite a lot. But if you think back to other bikes in the Kawasaki range, I think the Z900 was 224 kilos. Kawasaki's on paper always appear to be slightly portly and slightly overweight in comparison to their competitors. When you jump on them and ride them, you'll find that the weight means absolutely nothing. And some people prefer to feel a little bit more meat between their legs. It's another one of those lines that I've just said to a camera that I wish that I just hadn't said. So the RS Cafe does what all good Kawasaki's do, and it starts and finishes with a big rorty airbox drum. When you jump on the gas, it feels very, very well. When you do this with your right hand, you just get this sense that something is boiling and bubbling and going on underneath you. You do get instant drive, you do get lovely torque that turns into seamless power that's perfectly suited to a bike like this. It is quicker than it looks, and it is faster than 109 horsepower would have you believe. But it all starts with this beautiful kind of raucous bubbling noise that's going on in the airbox. Every good Kawasaki does it. Everything that I can remember from ZX7s all the way up to this. You get loads of noise, you get loads of shove, you see the needles sweeping around those analog clocks, and you start chucking gears at this thing like there's no tomorrow. It's loads of fun to ride, and if you're in the market for a retro bike that does more than just look cool, you should definitely stick this on the list with XSR900, R9T, Thruxton. All of those bikes sit perfectly at the performance end of the retro scale. One of the things that I enjoyed the most about this bike when you're trying to ride it quite fast is the amount of space there is for your ass to move around on that big old seat. It's not like a ZX10 or a ZX6 that dictates where you sit by the shape of the seat. There's so much room for you to move around. You can opt for quite an upright style, carry some lean, stick the thing over. When you're ready to, you can move your ass around quite easily. There's loads of room for you to find somewhere that suits you and your riding style. So cool things start happening at about 3,000 revs, and unless you're chasing 11-second quarters at Santa Pod or you've left the iron on at home, everything's over by about 9,000 revs. It's absolutely screaming by then. It sounds amazing. The stock pipe doesn't need changing for an aftermarket one, in my opinion. The airbox is doing what it does. You're getting all that torque, then all that power, having loads of fun, going faster than you think. Again, I know if you're watching this online and you're rolling up your sleeves, getting ready to say that you ride a Lita sports bike and this wouldn't see you for dust, go and have a ride on one. It's not as slow as you might think, and you're probably not as quick as you might think either. The cornering process on Z900 is as much fun as the accelerating one. Those adjustable forks at the front, I didn't adjust them, they were perfect for me. The brakes are more than adequate as they are. The only question for me would be the tyres. The Dunlop Sportmax tyres are a step too far down the retro road for me. I'd fling them in the bin and fit something else. It's not necessarily that I don't get on with Dunlops, but I do have a little bit of a hang up about OE Dunlops that come on Kawasaki's in particular. So top speed merchants might be wondering about how fast this goes. Well, if you're 10 years old, just take a look at the speedo. It says 150, it'll go a little bit faster than that. In the real world, I reckon this bike's probably good for about 130, 135 miles an hour. More than enough on the road, more than enough on track, and certainly more than enough for drag racing at Santa Pod. Now, the looks of this bike might not appeal to you, you weirdo. This looks perfect. You can buy a Z900 that isn't a cafe, that doesn't have this top fairing on it, but be aware it doesn't only look cool, but it plays a role in how you feel when you're riding as well. It does deflect wind either over your head or into your chest, whatever you're looking for, but I know that I certainly had more protection behind this than I do on my XSR900, for example, which is a similar kind of bike with absolutely nothing to hide behind other than the ignition key. So without just going back over old ground again and again and again, the cool thing about this bike when you're getting on the gas, and even when it's ticking over, when it's on idle, it sounds lumpy, it sounds like it's on carbs, it sounds like it's going to take some balancing to make the thing rev cleanly and do what it does. Even though it's on the latest, greatest, emissions-friendly fuel injection that is super clean and super efficient, Kawasaki have somehow managed to do a fantastic job in making a new bike feel like an old bike that feels like a new bike. So one of the cooler aspects of spending time with Z900RS Cafe is the amount of attention that it draws for itself. It's not about the bike and the rider, as I've found with other bikes. People want to know what you think about how they ride. This bike is different. People just want to come over and look at it and spend time taking in the details. Maybe tell you a story or two about their Uncle Z9 when they were a kid, or some old drag racing story, or some old story that relates to the bike. It's not about you. Don't buy one of these bikes and hope that people come and talk to you about it. Buy one of these bikes and expect people to get in your way staring at it while you're putting your helmet and your gloves on.